Hello, this is How to Start Reading Books by CBGJ6. I guess we can get into it. A lot of people ask me what they should start with and how they should start their journey on reading more books and stuff, so I kind of just type out the same thing every time. So this will be a video on my advice to each person. We're going to be going over the three kinds of different books that I guess are my favorites or the best to start off with. And I also threw an extra book in there because it's great. So, yeah. The first category is fantasy. And in my opinion, A Song of Ice and Fire is a great way to start off. This is what I started off reading. Like, this was like the first real book that I read and like what really started to get me into books. I set a goal to read a Game of Thrones in less than a year because I was pretty nervous about reading a 900-page book, or I think it's 800 pages, but I was pretty nervous about it, so I set my goal for a year and I ended up finishing it in like a month and a half. So then I read all of the other ones. It took me like I think 5 or 6 months to do, but I did not regret it. It's a great series. It is the thing that got me into reading. I think it's a really addicting book to read, and it's great for new readers as well because it's not super complicated. A lot of the language that we use just in our daily lives is using this book, but I mean, there are parts where they use like words that you might have to look up or something, but it's not that complicated, so it's kind of easy to read. And it's long, which is why a lot of people are hesitant, but I mean, it just sucks you in. I wish it was longer. I wish he would actually make books, but we don't get what we want sometimes. So, yeah, this is a great book that I think everyone should read at least once, or a great set of books, I should say. And kind of a medieval fantasy. There are dragons, knights, kings, different queens, different like civilizations that are fighting for something. And yeah, it's really good. I think everyone would like this book if they picked it up. So yeah. And branching off of this fantasy starter book, I have Middle Earth. Um, this is my favorite fantasy of all time. A lot of people just know Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but there are also a lot of other books, The Silmarillion, The Children of Hurin, a lot of books by J.R.R. Tolkien that I think are great, and I love just all of them. I think it's one of the best, if not the best story ever told. I think that everyone should read it. I feel like most people probably know what it's about, but I think that if you give The Hobbit a try and you like it, you should read Lord of the Rings. And if you like Lord of the Rings, which I don't know how you wouldn't, I think you should read like The Silmarillion and Children of Hurin and all that stuff. Uh, just to get more familiar with the amazing world that is uh, Middle Earth. I think it's a great world to go into. So, yep. Our next category is going to be kind of like a religious fiction, almost kind of category. So, Frankenstein actually, I read it during Halloween because I expected it to be just more like a Halloween book, but it is one of the most interesting and best books that I've ever read. I think it's a great book, and it's a little tough to read. I mean, but I think that everyone can start out with it. You know what I mean? I think that everyone has the ability to do so, as long as you just dedicate yourself to learning more and stuff. But it's a great story that follows a great character in the monster, And also, Frankenstein is a great character as well, and their dynamic is amazing. And just the religious themes that come into play when you're reading this book, and the references or allusions to the Bible or the devil or something like that. There are just a lot of them in here, and it's pretty interesting. And I really, really enjoy reading those kinds of things. So, um, and I think that everyone would if they did, because it's a really interesting kind of concept to me. So, yeah, this is something I'd recommend to people. Great book. Uh, and then if you do like this kind of book, a little bit of a different tone changed next two books, but uh, same idea. Lament. Uh, my second favorite book of all time. I almost cried after I finished it. It's a it's really a great book. I don't know how anyone could not like this book. It is very long. It's around 1,500 pages, but I think the unabridged is a must if you're going to read this book. I think it's truly just a masterpiece, and I don't know how anyone could even read the first 50 pages of this book and think it was bad. I was hooked within 50 pages. It was great. It was a great reading experience. This I read in about a month. So, I don't know if that just shows you how good it is, but I could not stop reading this book. It's a great book. It follows a lot of different characters that represent different things, and it is just a wonderful story that makes you think a lot about a lot of different things. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but I think like if you like admirable protagonists, and if you like understanding most characters like motivations and what's happening, and it connects also to the real world. It's like a historical fiction kind of book that involves a French Revolution. I think this is for you. I think it's a great book, and I don't think it, I don't know if there wasn't another book on this that I had read before this book. I don't know how I wouldn't know how this could be topped, but we'll get to that later. Another religious book, or not religious, but a fictional book with religious themes in it that I love is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I think it's a great, great novel. It is essentially a retelling of the book of Genesis with fictional characters and real characters as well. He uses a lot of his own family members in this book, and he mentions them kind of a lot. And wow, it is just this is my third favorite book of all time. I could not leave it out of this video, and it's not a very hard read. This is an American book written in the early 1900s, and man, it is great. I don't know how anyone could read this book and not enjoy it. It follows brothers, and then it follows lovers, and then it follows more brothers, and it just is a whole family dynamic that it leaves me speechless every time. I can't get over how good this book is, and I marvel at how good it is. I truly don't understand how these authors do it, but anyways, this is a great book, and I think that you should check it out if you get the chance. And if you like other kinds of books like this, like if you've read any of his other books, it's pretty similar. So the next book is The Stranger by, as you can see, Albert Camus. He's a French philosopher, which leads me to what kind of category is this book? This book, I would classify it as a philosophical fiction. So what that means is that Albert Camus uses fictional characters in this book to communicate a philosophical idea that he has, or maybe provoke a philosophical question that he has for the reader, so you can decide for yourself. And I really do like these kinds of books, and I think Albert Camus is one of the best at it. He has a lot of other books like this that he uses the same tactic on. So you can check out any of those if you like this. But this is like a 70, 80 page book. I read it in around 2 hours. And, but man, what a great, it just is a great story with a great main character, a lot of complex themes that I personally like a lot. And I think it just is a really thought provoking book that I think a lot of people would like if given the chance of reading it. So that's why I would recommend that. And to branch off into more of this philosophical fiction, I would just recommend Dostoevsky as a whole. Dostoevsky answers some of the most important and thought of questions that have ever been thought of in the history of humanity, I guess you could say. He's my favorite author of all time. The Brothers Karamazov is my favorite novel ever written. And I do love Crime and Punishment as well. It's top 5 for me. But all of these books are great. I would start with Notes from the Underground and then maybe move to Crime and Punishment and then The Idiot and then maybe top it off with the Brothers Karamazov. He also has another novel called Demons, which I have not read, but I've heard it's very good. But it is essentially universally agreed that the Brothers Karamazov is the magnum opus of Dostoevsky. And essentially, in his books, he answers a lot of questions that he struggles with, or I guess you could say tries to answer. It depends on the reader and if you're satisfied with his answers, or if you feel like you need more. But I feel like the way in which he approaches topics is so unique and beautiful and horrible in a way that is just so addicting to read, and I think everyone should read as many of his books as you can. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's the end of the video. So yeah, I'll see you guys later.